There's excitement in the air because today we finished the restoration of our 38 Packard coupe. So join me as I wrap up a few minor details and then visit with a special Packard guest. Welcome to Classic Car Restoration. I'm your host, Mark Lambert. Our 38 Packard coupe has really come a long way since we began this restoration. Now it's a completely sorted car mechanically, and it looks terrific too. Today, I want to introduce you to a special Packard guest, plus I want to show you one of my own Packards and how to store your collector car. But first, let's wrap up a few final details on our 38 coupe. First, I re-glue the strips on the running board using weather strip adhesive. All right, now we can position it. Next, I replace the 1970s reproduction mirror with a correct 1930s swan neck mirror. Here's our new swan neck. And I'm going to put it in the same position, but I'm going to walk this weather strip forward. There we go. All right, that looks a lot better. And for 35 bucks a pair, it's well worth it. All the 38 Packards were wired for clocks, plus they had this glove box door that had a place for one. But the clock itself was extra, so a lot of them had this blanking plate. Now we found this clock on an internet auction site, and we're going to install it. The lead wire is simply attached to the clock. And this is the clock light. It comes on with the headlight switch right there. And look at this. Here's a reproduction Packard 8 owner's manual. Now the reason I know it's a reproduction, look in the back. You can always see the credit. But that is a really nice repro. All right, let's see what we've got. Now that looks a lot better. Now this is one of the most fragile parts on the car. It's the license plate holder. It goes right here, and ours is broken. Now it's pot metal, but we could still repair it. It would still be fragile. And we went ahead and sourced a new one through an internet auction. Now this is a reproduction part. It's much heavier made than the original part, so we're going to run with this. To install it, I need to take this light out and pull the electricals. Loosen the screws and remove the taillight lens and pull the electricals out. This is a little tricky. I've got to reach back in there and get this bolt up through the skin of this light. Here's one. Good. All right, now this is the bracket itself. It goes on top of the stanchion bracket, and it goes in like this. Good. And here's our Packard license plate. They never overstated the merits of the car. It was just ask the man who owns one. Good. Good. Now let's polish up this chrome a little bit. There's probably a good finish under all that dirt, so use a quality metal polish and some extra fine steel wool to polish by hand, or use a buffer to polish the larger areas. Now, if we keep this chrome polished up, it'll last for years. It won't oxidize. And don't forget about this, the back of the bumper, because that's vulnerable to rust too. I like to use silver paint. Our final detail is to paint the tailpipe. I use a black high-heat paint. All right, that completes our final detailing. When we come back, we'll be joined by Stuart Packard. He's a member of the Packard family, and he'll share with us some history on the Packard Proving Grounds in Utica, Michigan. Welcome back to Classic Car Restoration. One of the most enjoyable aspects of the whole collector car hobby is learning about the people. Now, not just the people involved in making these cars, but the people involved today in the clubs. Now, I've been a member of the Packard clubs for many years, and I can tell you that really pays some dividends. Those monthly publications are full of information and wonderful stories. They sell parts and cars also. But for me, the events are the very best part. You get to see all those great cars, plus you meet the most fascinating car people. Now today on Classic Car Restoration, I've got a very special guest. Mr. Charles Stewart Packard is in from Detroit. Stewart, thanks for joining us. It's an honor to have you here.
Well, Mark, it's a great pleasure to be here. Brought a little authentic 1930s touch.
All right.
No gentleman in the 30s would have been without a straw skimmer in the summertime.
All right. Well, tell me about this. Was the whole Packard family back in the day involved in car building?
Oh, by no means. Samuel was the first Packard to come to this country in 1638. He had 10 children, and they all went forth and multiplied, so they ended up doing all kinds of things. They were farmers and laborers and financiers and bankers and all of the professions you can think of.
Two of those Packards were brothers William Dowd and James Ward Packard, who in 1899 built the first Packard motor car in Warren, Ohio. More cars were produced, first in Warren and then in Detroit, and by the 1920s, the company was considered one of America's premier automakers. In the late 1920s, the company built an impressive testing facility in Utica, Michigan, known as the Packard Proving Grounds. Though it's been out of use since 1956, the Packard Foundation is now in the process of restoring this historic property.
The grounds used to occupy nearly a square mile. And not too many years ago, the Ford Motor Company bought the grounds with the idea of using it, but never did really use it. And they've been getting a lot of pressure from builders and developers in the area to use the ground. Well, the Packard Club said, can't we, Mr. Ford, have a piece of this for our history? And we have now acquired about a 13-acre parcel that includes a portion of the track, the timing tower, the buildings that housed employees who came out for testing purposes. And our goal is to restore that piece of Packard history to as near a state as we can to its original.
Now, I grew up in Indianapolis, the home of the Indianapolis Speedway. Yes. But I read that the Packard Proving Grounds was the fastest 2.5-mile circuit in the world.
Oh, it was beautifully designed, banked and curved. You could sustain maximum speed around that track. I think you mentioned earlier, without even having your hands on the steering wheel, because the track controlled the movement of the car as you varied the speed.
I read when you bought a V12 from Packard, it had already been broken in up at the Proving Grounds in Utica.
That's right. They'd pull them off the assembly line, take them up there, run them around the track, make sure that everything was running just like a watch. Then here you see, this is the remaining portion of the actual track. There's about 500 feet of it that they've managed to retain. And this was the timing tower, where they would monitor and time the cars circling the track.
There's the timing tower and a speed run. Looks like an early twin six. And I guess Vincent's driving it.
Yeah.
Top speed was 130.
This is the timing tower as it looks today. It's a little worn over the years, but it's very restorable, so one of these days it'll look perfect. Absolutely. That's just blank concrete. It's the remaining part of the track.
The restoration also includes the handsome Tudor Revival house, designed by famed architect Albert Kahn.
This is a marvelous slate roof all over these buildings.
And that has survived all these years.
In pretty good shape.
Relatively unattended.
Yeah, very few leaks in the building, and there are still people who can work with the tiles, and they're in the process of restoring this beautiful roof.
Oh, yeah.
There's the tower, the water tower. This has just recently been completed. This is one of the club's major projects, was to paint the tower and also to put Packard Proving Grounds as it was originally. This is an airplane hangar that stood, about a half mile from the complex we've been looking at. It was used for testing aircraft engines. At one time, Charles Lundgren visited here. And the remarkable thing is that it was on the portion that was sold by Ford Motor Company. But the People in the restoration actually moved this building, a distance of 1/4 of a mile, so that it's part of the complex in the 13 acres. Each year there's a major event here of car collectors. It's called the Carnival of Cars. It's sponsored by the Classic Car Club of America. And each June, several hundred cars of all makes, designs, styles come out here for a big rally and gathering.
Now, for more information about the Proving Grounds, you can visit our website at DIYnetwork.com. Let's take a look at these.
All right. I'll be led by you, Mark.
All right. While Stuart and I look at our 38 project car, we'll take a break. And when we come back, I'll show you my own 36 120 convertible coupe and share some touring tips. Welcome back to Classic Car Restoration. I want to give you a closer look now of the car that I was just showing to Stuart Packard. The dream of every collector is to find that one untouched original car, and that's what this is. It's a 36 Packard 120 convertible coupe, and it's got a rumble seat. There's 3 steps here to get in, and you've got room for 2 more passengers out here. Now, they're out in the elements, but if you're tops up, you've got a window here that zips down and you can talk to them. Either way, it's great fun. Now, this car was purchased brand new in 1936 by George and Luella Jeffries, and that's who I bought it from. It's got completely untouched original interior. Look at this stuff. This is what's so important when you're restoring a car. You've got the exact measurements and material to replicate when it comes time. The floor mats, all original. The dash is completely untouched. And the great thing is, this car only has 58,000 miles on it, and everything works really well. I drive this all the time. And I want you to notice this chrome frame windshield. It's got that great short look that became so popular with the hot rodders in the 1940s. Now, if you're really lucky, your car will come with all the original paperwork like this one did. Here is the original sales brochure. That gets you interested in the car when you go into the dealership. The car has the original owner's manual, all the information to operate the car. Now, these are kind of hard to find. This is the list of the original Packard approved accessories for the car. There's our radiator emblem. There's our fender skirts. We've got those too. But this is the best stuff. Here's the original bill of sale package from the dealer, John Deitch. George went into the dealership in June of '36, and he traded in his other car, and with the allowance there and the $422 cash, he had $1,342 invested. Now, during the war, he needed gasoline ration stamps, and those are what's there. He even saved the coupon book for the oil changes and lubrication service. Whether your car is a good original one like this or a freshly restored car, you're going to want to use it in the way it was intended to be used, to go out on tour with it. Now I want to show you my own little survival kit that I use when I go out on the road. I am happy to report that in 30 years of driving these old cars all over the country, I have never had an out-of-town breakdown that I couldn't fix right there on the side of the road. Now, how did I do that? With a survival kit, and I want to show you that right now. Now, years ago, when the Lambert boys were trying to start an old car, my dad would come out to the garage and say, "You guys get fire and fuel together and something's going to happen." Well, he was right, and think about that. Your failure is going to be either ignition or fuel, or you're going to overheat. So you don't need a whole junkyard worth of parts in the trunk of the car, taking up your wife's luggage space. You don't need a whole generator, just bring some generator brushes. You can install those right there on the side of the road. Or a set of points. You don't need a whole distributor, just bring a condenser and points. Now, On the fuel side, I never leave town without an electric fuel pump. That way, if my mechanical pump goes down, I can just wire in this electric pump with some wire and some extra fuel hose, and I can get home, and then I can do all the repairs once I get home. Now, the only other thing that's going to leave you on the side of the road is a water pump failure. Think about it, because the cooling system is pretty stable. You're not going to lose a radiator. If you lose a hose, you can pick it up out on the road. But the water pumps are hard to find, so always take an extra water pump with you. And of course, all of this accompanies a good tool satchel. Now, there's one more thing, a road bag. You can get these on the internet, and these are indispensable. The first thing I like is a fire extinguisher. Now, a lot of car clubs require a fire extinguisher before they'll even let you on the show field. But look at this other stuff. Here's the contents: duct tape, a candle, a compass, extension cord, flashlight, gloves, umbrella, rope, a rain poncho. All these little incidentals that you find you need, you accidentally left them at home, and then you have to chase all over and find a drugstore or something to find them. They're all in this bag. Just pitch it in the trunk, forget about it until you need them. Now, for more information about survival kits and road bags, you can come to the website at DIYnetwork.com. Now, make sure you stay with us, because when we come back, I want to show you how to properly store your collector car. And then we'll recap our whole restoration on our 38 Packard Coupe. Welcome back to Classic Car Restoration. All right, you finally got your car restored. After a lot of money and hard work, you've got it just the way you want it. So, how do you store that car? Well, you probably won't use it every day. Weeks or even months may elapse between each use. And whether it's indoors or out, you've got to store it properly. So, what's the first thing? A car cover. Now, this is a weather shield cover. This is custom made for our car, but they can make it for any car. Now, they've got the dimensions for almost any car, but they'll want to know if you have any special accessories. Our Packard has the swan neck mirrors, so they made these mirror pockets to accommodate them. Now, this is a 3-layer quilted cover. It's exceptionally good for outdoor use because it's got what they call moisture management. In other words, it lets the moisture escape, but it won't let it in. Whatever you use, avoid those plastic tarps, because that will just lift the paint off the car. You'll have open metal that's just rusting. Another great storage option is a car capsule. Simply lay the plastic out, drive the car on, drape the cover over the car, zip it up, and plug in the air pump. In just a few minutes, the capsule fills with air. It helps to adjust the plastic cover as it expands. It eventually fills up so that the plastic skin isn't touching any part of the car. The continuous airflow prevents moisture, corrosion, mildew, and mold. Now, I really hope you've been following our restoration process on this 38 Packard Coupe all through the different stages, because we've taken it component by component, we've done it ourselves, and we've done it right. We just took our time, and that's so important for the home hobbyist to remember. So often I hear these guys that finally find their dream car, they immediately take it home and take it all apart. What happens? They lose their enthusiasm, or they get frustrated, or life just happens, and those old cars end up on the auction block. I don't want that to happen to you. I want you to do your restoration the way we did ours. We took it step by step, looking at each component system individually, and we repaired what was necessary. And we didn't move to the next one until it was all tested and all done. That way you're never working over fresh cosmetics. I really like the way this Packard turned out. Not just the way it looks, but the way it runs too. Whether you're a Packard collector like I am, or somebody brand new to the hobby, I think you'll agree we've really got something we can be proud of here. And I want to thank my guests and all the restoration experts that helped me along the way. And I thank you too for joining in on our fun. And I also encourage you to go out and find your dream car and restore it. We did it, and you can too. And I'll see you on the next Classic Car Restoration.